Thursday poetry night is a beautiful thing to witness, so thank you all for coming. My name is Courtney Terry. I work at the public library here in McMinnville, and we partner every month on the first Thursday at 6 p.m. with Dan and Nancy, owners of the gallery at 10 Oaks, to hold these poetry nights. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Courtney. I'm from McMinnville Public Library. Tonight we have TimWhitsel here to read. He has brought his 2016 book, which is for sale, although tonight he will be reading newer material, maybe.
I'm going to read about 4.
Okay, he'll read something. Sorry, that was probably a spoiler. Sorry. So thank you all for coming. Just a couple things about upcoming events. Starting 2 weeks from today, so March 21st, we are bringing back our spring poetry contest for the library. And the theme, which I made up, is literary spring. And I don't know how you would interpret that. That's the poet's job. So that's however you may interpret that. That's our theme. We're allowing 2 entries per person, unpublished work. It will be, our judges will be library staff, and so tell your friends. It's really fun. And then so the winning poems will be the featured reading for our June poetry night here at the gallery at 10 Oaks. So here.
No, where is this event?
The event, so the contest, it goes from March 21st to May 21st. So anytime between then you can turn in a poem. And then on June 4th or 7th, whatever is the first Thursday in June, we'll be here, and then the winners of the poetry contest will be the featured readers.
So you mail in your...
Or bring them to me.
Oh.
I work at the library. I'm there a lot.
Put the $5 bills in the paper.
Yeah.
Put it in the book.
Or if you put a $7 bill, you have a better chance.
I mean, I would appreciate $7, but there's no fee to enter, so just saying. And then in terms of additional poetry events, next month we'll have Kim Stafford, the Poet Laureate, will be here on the April 4th, and then we get to come back again to 10 Oaks on April 18th at 6 o'clock, and we're doing another Paintings to Poems. Which if you haven't done that before, it's really fun. We basically turn you loose throughout the gallery so you can find a work of art that's particularly inspiring to you, and then we make you write a poem about it right then. You have like 45 minutes, but right then. And then unless you're Bob, and then you come in. Anybody can be Bob. Well, no, you're a unique person, but anyone can, I mean, there's no cheating in paintings to poems, so if you happen to come by the gallery and check, that's cheating, Bruce. Which I will also add, the show will be gone by the time we do paintings to poems, but if you haven't gone upstairs, the show that the art that we have displayed upstairs, upstairs, it's our high school student showcase. So it's all local high school students from Mac High, so all the art upstairs, not all of it, but there's a room with their art in it, so please support our young artists. And I think I've done enough talking about what's happening. Lots of poetry events, which we couldn't do without all of you, so thank you. And then I will go ahead and turn it over to Tim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody play baseball, sandlot baseball when they were a kid? Oh, come on, guys. All right, stand up. It's called knobbing up. It's how you begin. Who bats first, right? That's my one visual aid, although I could use it for other things if, you know, if people don't pay attention.
No one fall asleep.
Knobbing up. Deep image, deep river, deep structure, deep canyon, parallel syntax, parallel aspen, parallel rhetoric, parallel crevasses, suspended disbelief, suspended blueberry, suspended plot, suspended ice, higher criticism, high palisades, high concept, highest meadow. I'm going to read mostly new stuff, and then I'll read 4 poems from Wishmail. Like I told Courtney, the book came out in October of 16, and I submitted the manuscript back in May of 2014, so I've done a lot of reading both from the book and a lot of writing since then. So this could serve as a kind of bio, I think. You know, I didn't do a word count on it. It's probably under 70 words, right? But there's an old saying, never say never, right? But after you've passed probably your 60th birthday, I think, you can start looking back, and there are certain things you can say, never. Never again. Never again. Plant a Chinese wisteria. Buy another Volkswagen. Have a child. Never select a builder by his sandals. Reassemble a bicycle in Tijuana. Take the red eye, planning just to drive on. Never again turn down a movie role in Cairo. Doze on the floor in a state park restroom. Try for an Irish brogue while on speed. Never fail to get a visa exit stamp. Ignore the warning for 12-foot swells. Never intervene in love. A poem set in Alaska called Stream. The aurora borealis blaze all year, but go out in the early dark, the steady cold to be taken by their shimmer. Sockeye, swimming scarlet into throats of glacial turquoise, lifted all the color summer could expend in thrashing gulps. Now spruce logs bundled in the boom bump like concentration camp arrivals, passing secrets in the tidewater mist. Autumn equinox, and every night death barbs the periphery, eliciting ghost eels overhead, blinding traders to the pole star. Streams have been depleted of easy luster, fewer treasures to dynamite or net. Ice fields snake the entire northern sky. A poem for my oldest child, who is in the hospital in Battleground, timing contractions right now, called, so I live out east of Springfield, but sort of the big city is Eugene, if you can call Eugene a big city. And we have a farmer's market, an active farmer's market, and the characters who sell at the market are quite interesting. It's great. What else do you need to know? There's a reference at the very end to Atitlan, which is a lake in the Central Highlands of Guatemala, considered sacred among the Maya. Also home to a number of American expatriates who've resettled or retired there, including a friend of mine from college who had just resettled there and passed away about this time last year. But this poem is for my daughter Hannah. Cheek art. Hummingbirds hitch their way south on the backs of swans, says the artist, daubing a lime green breast on the girl's cheek. You trust this on the street corner where her neighbor fashions Snoopy or a dragon from breath and finger-thin balloons. 12 years on, the young woman in the studio chair calms her breath to take the piercing over her cheekbone. What does she recall of street market fables, feathery green paint, the light giggling off ornaments, sanctifying folk? 19, she itches to hitch a ride to Atitlan. I'm in a writing prompt workshop every other Wednesday at breakfast, and frequently we'll, as a prompt, we'll read a poem from someone else, or we'll read a section of an important piece of prose, or we do stuff with random word baskets. Question and answer period, you can ask more about that. But this came from one of the members had just finished reading George Saunders' amazing book, Lincoln in the Bardo, which, I mean, is peopled with all of these souls and spirits and restless in between selves. So we were all trying to write some sort of a response to that. And, well, this one's for my mother who had passed, she passed back in March of 2013. The poem is called Halfway House. If I was standing beside your grave in these showers and disruptive sun breaks, what would be in limbo still? The evening you swung the paring knife toward our dad's face. The afternoon you climbed the barbed wire fence in coral culottes while us boys waited in the car packed full for camping, steam coursing from under the hood. The poem you penned that you tried to give me before I had any child of my own. Before I had any child of my own. Too young to know we never own each other. Too reckless to overlook your rhymes. And from that Indiana-ish poem, I will go and read 4 that are sort of set back in that place I grew up in northern Indiana. The first one is called Westward, and it's my migration tale, how I came west, some of which might even be true. It's called Westbound. Behind a granite outcropping fringed with spruce, the train ran steadily out of sight. Wrist for impossibly long days. A bracelet of damaged beads showcased in glare. I knelt and laid my cheek against the track while it hummed, praising the contoured fields of sappy winter wheat, those lilacs and mock orange, the freight buffeted yesterday. I paused. The linked saga scribbled tiny toward the far ridge. I made my chest a scrapbook for the stranded pickups and washing machines, for the jacked convertibles that sacrificed spinner wheels for Pampers, birthday parties, and heating oil. I yielded to tar-papered back porches and the exposed wafer board of unfinished rooms. I pledged my afternoon to a drift of perfume from centenary cottonwoods. I trudged under a hymn of loose sky. The horizon rallied gravestones under gauze. My upbringing was quite religious, conservative. So there are some poems in here that reference that. This is a kind of more recent prayer poem called Dear God. Dear God, I have learned, watching children doze, to make fierce with the shadow of death. My thoughts turn to you every spring when flowers come too fast to really appreciate. Also at Christmas, when you bully your way past playground guards to brighten nights of rain. I didn't get that part about you going to prepare a place for us. Why can't you finish what you started? I'm wondering if there's an extended warranty for that survival kit you sent me years ago. It sat on the closet floor so long the instructions must have gotten wet because all the words run together. Is there any burden in taking up a small gold cross? I've never forgotten the cigarettes we smoked together riding our bikes down the streets of Avalon, where they were building new houses. How old were we? 10, 11? There are afternoons you haunt me when the fly fishing sucks. Neither of us has done well keeping promises. Today's Thursday. Yesterday was Ash Wednesday. We just started Lent, if you are raised in that tradition, which includes everybody all the way back to the Catholics. So this poem is a take on the penultimate event of Lent, that last Friday, called Wood Friday. On my hands and knees, I paint baseboard to make nail holes disappear, as if this straight wood could be fastened to rough plaster walls without force or scar. In a small corner of one bedroom, I cannot see what I do. Head, shoulders, and a maroon bookcase block the only source of light. I work by repetition and faith, praying not to be revealed the fool at this hour of his gruesome demise by morning's angle of illumination. I'm going to read the poem that's on that letterpress. Actually, the only time I've won anything in poetry. Won first prize at the Northwest Poets Concord out at Newport in 2013 or 14. It's a poem set in Puget Sound in the winter at night, digging steamer clams. It's called Mudflat Allure. Birds in moist darkness, a quintet of gull sharks for fingerling saltworms, evening snacks as the tide pulls away. Our lanterns sizzle, flaring the abruption of a great blue heron making his great jointed ascent. Working at winter break. Wool union suits scratch young skin at the margins. Our burlap bags will not freeze while we kneel beside dikes to rake for manila clams. In deeper water, light gleams. A small tugboat nags at the vast corduroy of a log boom. Fog hangs in rivers of night air. So I have one last poem I'll finish with from Wishmeal. But I'm going to go back and read newer stuff. This is grape growing country, right? Still grape growing country. We know what Pinot Noir is and rootstock and all that other good stuff. Well, this poem I actually envisioned down in southern Oregon, like down in the Applegate or something, because the varietal is a hot climate varietal that I referenced towards the end of the poem. What else do you need to know? Everything is about biodynamic nowadays, which is not just organic, but you got to follow the phases of the moon, and there are cow horns that you fill up with manure at the head of each vineyard, each row, and blah, 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 blah. Also goes back to Rudolf Steiner, as I understand it, who, among other things, founded the Waldorf school system. Somebody's nodding like they think I might be telling the truth. What else do you need to know? There's a reference to contadini, which are the Italian peasant farmers. And those guys are the ones who are responsible for bringing vinifera grapes to Sonoma and Napa and most of the places in Chile and Argentina in the New World. Contadini. But I saw them as peasant farmers who were refugees, who were immigrants, home was behind them and they were going out. What else do you need to know? The grape that is referenced is Carmenere, which was thought to have disappeared entirely from winemaking, and then they found it in pre-phylloxera vineyards down in Chile. And so now they've started replanting also back in Bordeaux and in places here in the U.S. Anything else for this short poem? There's a reference to the town in Syria, Holmes, that got bombed to smithereens about 2 or 3 years ago, and there'd be pictures on the evening news of families and men and young boys in lines pushing towards Europe, trying to find some place they could safely land. So there's a reference to Holmes. The poem is called Biodynamique. Sick of the quarantine of overcast, I envy the moth shucking its torn pincushion. Musket volleys of daffodil explode. March showers spritz news. A shift in season, as though tomorrow's sun could fixate on the success of meadows. Rain resumes on afternoon lambs. New calves ogle. A marsh hawk drifts, deliberates over acres of young trees. Smatters of wet, then scorch. Repeat into dusk. Bud break. Lapidary angst. Now June. Under a daylight moon, I glimpse the contadini clutching heirlooms a century ago, rescuing their starts. In my upper parcel, grapes spice the air with bloom, renewal knocking open rows of gnarled mummies. Which cuttings did the worn sons fleeing homes carry close to their hearts? For a saved blue vinifera, believed extinct, I shuck my fears, trot a coyote trot. Decapitate weeds inside grow tubes on the new acres of lost Carmenere, Mañana. It's a poem set in flyover country, in Donald Trump country, on the banks of the upper Mississippi. It's called Quibble. A frenzy of black mayflies. Under humid sky, the abandoned crane above the dock doesn't creak. A thick man at the stern of a nodding pontoon jigs his fishing rod to load the freezer. One wish under lank prayer flags, a nibble. Not far off, barges moored on a kite string, vessels moaning with grain and rust, jealous of the freight train's velocity along the far bank, ratcheting heaps of pulverized coal. There are no shoals or gravel bars to worry a train's engineer. The big muddy sweeps or resists vouchers, distillates, lugs of iron taken out of hollers and hills, sorghum from spavine grassland. Prices lift or fall with the rains. Perils. Whips of ivory pelicans rise and punish dusk. There are no Gandhi dancers left for the neon Golgotha or the catfish dives. Men with clever shoulders and wrist leveraged out in glass office, high-rise commodity trades. A Dow, T-A-O, a Dow of actuarial disfavor. No minstrels now except these party pontoons, glowing and solitary fishers. There's a crossing ahead where a drunk in a pickup waits, snapping his pull tab like a pelican bored with the shimmer of little fish, quibbling. The pleated tracks of a jetliner up sky trace every uncertainty pulsating in the heat. Just a couple more. We doing all right? What do you need to know about this? Oh, well, it starts out in Amsterdam. And at some point it follows the European storks down into Saharan Africa where they overwinter on the savannas down there. And there's a reference at the very end to 3 different instruments. Zither, which in the way you stumble on things in poems goes back to the Latin cithara and Greek kithara, even Spanish guitarra. So zither. And then there are 2 African or Arabic stringed instruments. One's the ngoni, and the final one is oud. Zither, ngoni, and oud. Oud is like a large-bellied mandolin, kind of, but there's like, I don't know, 16 strings to it or something. It's crazy. Twinges. Striding along canals in Amsterdam rain, imbibing a sonata by Bach, you can fathom this mania for tulips, bright lanes of exultation. Your scapula twinges for the bird it was destined to be. The light over a car park buzzes and blurts, a hawk moth jittering in its glow. Strobe to your canal wanderlust. No North Sea gusts embitter tonight. Beyond the slumped row houses, a hen harrier flits over darkening fields, careless, for her white cravat, too hungry to fly any way but focused, flying into mist. Far south, in a land arid for tulips, the Musein will be buried among European storks wintering there. His minaret, a tulip built of anguish. Scrawl and glide, scrawl, scrawl and glide, wide wings soaring over canyons, sea and dust. This call your Coltrane on zither, Ngone oud. Just a couple more. So I grew up in Indiana, and this reference is something that happened a couple years after I left and went to Seattle. It's written in memory of Alan Rutledge, who lost his life at about 20 years of age, and I think you'll figure out how that happened by the end of the poem. And it's just sort of a revisit and a reverie. I might also note that merlins are known as pigeon hawks, merlins. The poem's called Strays. The gymnasium roof is speckled aggregate marked by pigeons, by etchings of new arrogant boys, a sanctuary of exaltation and tar. Cecilia is fresh back from Al's Deli and Meats, equipped with a wedge of Irish cheese, a liter of India Pale Ale. I should have changed that to wine for this. A liter of India Pale Ale, the best sourdough, and her $10 knife. Cecilia carves the white cheddar. I tear chunks of stinking bread. What was the sound of 6 friends' screams? His mouth with that halo of blonde, soft curls, unraveling terror down an empty sky. Pigeon, pigeon, here, little nibbler. No merlin preys on the wing snaps of ghosts. Chains that held our grade school swings were switched long ago for links in rigid safety sleeves. The midday sun blanches starlings down on the clover, arranges maneuvers of tulips and bees. His letter jacket stayed in a hall closet, waiting for the arms to crumble. No one names the steps to repack a parachute. After 30 years, she'll say, accident, but I see wiry Cecilia in all that blunt grief down on the playground. In a fluster, she shows me the maps her father drew of the sewers and manholes, the ladders leading down to the burial of wings. This is a true story. My wife's family is from the lower Olympic Peninsula, and the road we take almost every Thanksgiving to go to her family home for the holiday is often flooded. Skokomish River Valley. If you go home and Google it, there are video footages of salmon swimming across the road. And it's really ghoulish if you happen to, it gets dark at 4, right, in November, so it's dark and you have this little window and you across. So here we go, ahead. Salmon hustle across the road in the flood, serpentine, frenzied as roosters. If we break at the other side of this impromptu river, what should we endeavor? to herd the creatures back into desperate confusion or onto a summer field. Let their roe be delivered where chance allows. Let eagles spired in cottonwoods rejoice with high-pitched calls as the dying are sequestered. Other headlights now scallop trinket-sized windows on the wonders of 3 days' rain. In rows of sweet corn, pioneers never dreamed to savor between ripe huckberries and autumn darkness. Next summer, maize will honey the air, will ripple, lifting dead chums, streaming lost kings. One new poem, and then I'll go back for a little benediction from the book Wishmeal. My wife grew up in parts of Africa. Her mother was a missionary doctor. This is about a place we visited that was one of her homes, Zululand in South Africa. And this is based on an actual sign that was in the Kruger National Park. The poem is called Refuse, and it has this epigraph. Placement of a casket or any urn containing human ashes in a national park without authorization is a criminal offense. Refuse. Bury you or burn me down to kernels, this ash carried from far off, thrown in a dank pool, forbidden. The African figure crosses hands, stone hands as wide as Cape Buffalo hooves, bars this womb, no home, no homer. No exiles, no birthplace returns, no beige stranger hands straining, reaching to find kindness among legendary stones. The hippos resubmerge. Retreat warily from these refuge pools, spank away showers. The heritage ravine snubs indiscreet memorial. A rainbow crouches on the horizon. Crown dust glows iridescent as our perplexity gallivants down the road. A poem I like to close with often from Wishmeal. It's called Transients, and I wrote it out at Summer Lake at the artist residency program at Playa. I was there for about 3 weeks in October of 14. Transients. Oh, and while you're there for your short period, you're known as one of the residents, which is the one thing you're not in that place. Residents are all the animals and all the people that are there forever and ever, right? Transients. We are not here long, so we chain and hang and wring these husks between pewter and gold. We walk among ancient stones and rivers costumed in turquoise and amethyst. Our gaze is not long either. So get busy with the grasp of horror and glee. Get while the incidents of current and obstacle collide, while the river foams for nostalgia at the name she wore in a cadence of April snow, or the ravishing forearms of June. We are not here. We hover. Remnants. The conspiracy of all that glimmers and disappears. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
I don't know what waffle board looks like.
Like what?
Waffle board? When you were talking about the house that has the tar paper.
Oh, that wasn't quite the OSB wafer board. Wafer board.
Wafer board, okay.
It's like plywood, only it's made with chips and chunks of wood.
Okay.
It's what is on almost all new construction, the exterior walls and sheathing, and on roofs.
Okay.
Bad idea on roofs in this climate. Just saying. I've had to replace a bunch of mine with plywood since. Other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned the every other week improv.
Yeah, it's we call it Breakfast Poets, and we meet. There's about 6 of us, and we've been doing it off and on every 2 weeks for 15 years, maybe at least.
So
And
it's right as you're there. In other words, you
yeah, oh yeah, we're there for 2 hours, and we'll probably and we do use an egg timer. Well, it used to be an egg timer. Now it's actually somebody's iPhone.
Yeah.
But there's 6-minute exercises, and you don't get to decline to read whatever you did or didn't get done. And we all contribute to a random word basket, right? We do photographs, so I have photographs from travels that end up in the mix, and we go through and we each pick 3 photographs face down, right? So you know you can't go, oh, I don't like that. And then we flip them over, and we got 6 minutes to try and put some really disparate things together. And I was kind of suspicious of the whole thing. I'm the one guy that they actually invited into the thing 15 years ago. It's astonishing the way 6 different people can take the same stimuli in the same 6 minutes and come up with. But the beautiful thing about these prompts is that it forces you off of your biograph. I mean, stuff from your biograph always kicks up, but it's in a handled way within the context of making a connection, making a bridge, making an extension, and not because you're trying to get your own narrative right. It's really productive kind of thing. I would say that probably 15, 16 of the poems that are in this book came from that workshop. Half of what the new stuff I read this evening came from that workshop. And not everything produces something. And some people go back and immediately do stuff. Other people waste their time and then they leave their notebook in Montreal or something, and then their mother-in-law gets to read it. Mine ends up in an envelope just like that, and then I don't even look at them until the year's over. But you know, if you make 24 meetings a year and you end up with 3 to 4 exercises out of each workshop, even if you only get a title or you get 3 lines, I mean, that's a lot of stuff to work off of. And I would say that 1, 2, 3, 2 other writers that are in that writer's workshop ended up publishing books with AIRLIE. And it's kind of ironic because we all have to submit blind and anonymous. But yeah, Kelly Twiller's in that group. Her book, oh, she's going to shoot me now. Fish hook, key, thorn key.
Yeah.
But what's the first word?
Riddle.
Riddle, fish hook, thorn, key.
She was here in the fall.
And Cecilia Hagen, whose book,
Partly.
no, that's
Oh,
Deb. I don't know. It's in here. Look it up, Tim. It's right in the front cover. Entering. Entering.
Good, thanks.
Thank you for being so attentive. Oh, there's another question.
Can you tell us a little more about the 20-year-old that went home that you read?
What did it sound like? Oh, I didn't really know him all that well. I was only in school with him for my freshman year. And then the year after that, they had been building a whole new school in my hometown. And so the district divided, and I ended up going to another school. So I didn't really know him well, but he was a big guy with a big personality, a big blonde afro, and he played football. And, you know, the kind of person you would think was inextinguishable. And then I found out that in the spring of the year after we all graduated, I think it was then, he and a bunch of the other guys from that football team had taken up skydiving, and his parachute didn't open. And there were 2 of his friends in the air, and there were 3 others that were still in the plane. But it's a kind of image that you just, even if you didn't know the person well, it's not something that goes away. Thank you. Anybody else? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm done. Seems like I should be able to. There it is.
Wow.
Hey, hey.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and start our open mic. Bruce, thank you for just, like, look, everyone, Bruce, #1 spot. Bruce just wrote his name.
It's great.
I know.
Boldly.
Yes. I'm very, thank you. Thank you for being that #1 person. Because usually everyone is like, oh, #1, I'll just put myself as #2. And there's...
Hard and outdoors, and so this is called Today's Journey. It starts softly, slowly, a deep inner drumbeat, pacing your stroll, energizing fresh thoughts. You're moving rhythmically, arms swinging, fingers snap, finding a smooth new groove with dancer's poise. Seize that Zen moment in a robin's glance, when you can hear the loud tick of nature's clockwork. Trust it, compelling you to hum along with honeybees. Rake away matted leaves, reach below bent knees, sprinkle soil over seeds, helping tomorrow's furrows and groves to assure we never really will stand alone. The little flower in your hair, stolen from the garden, a silent trumpet, riffing as your talisman, mobilized, fueled to rev your motor with springtime mojo every place you go.
Thank you. And Dave. Yeah.
So we have something in common. I talk to God while the fly fishing sucks, and and I'm smoking my pipe out on the river. So this is called steelhead ghosts, and I guess the background is those of you that aren't fishermen should know that fishermen refer these to steelhead as ghosts, and they magically appear. Fellow believers in ghosts are drawn to the water's edge, hoping to be visited by an apparition. They wait. At first suggestion of dawn, they search the haunted space. Wedding lines, the faithful cast feathery wishes into the depths. Phantoms, suspended in fluid reality, rarely make an appearance at the surface. But true believers continue to cast wishes, and magically a few are granted, becoming connected to steelhead ghosts by thin lines of realism reaching between worlds. and have a swing set poem. And the poet I want to be is named Eric Darby, who wrote a great poem called Scratch and Dent Dreams, where he says we need the swing sets most on the rainy days. And I took that one thought and expanded it. It's called The Lone Kid. A lone kid on a rusty swing set, squeaking in the yard, attempts to fly. He remains anchored, links forged in ancestral memory and societal expectations. Repeatedly, he launches himself, and Mother Earth insists on his return. His playmates have long abandoned this playground, but hope draws him back to this place. He kicks again, airborne and light, reaching skyward, effortless belief in moments of disconnection from grinding reality.
Thanks, Dave. And Mike. Yeah.
I'm Mike Santone, and I live a few blocks from here, and we have a poetry porch on one of the free library things on our property, and it's got a poetry porch there. And just before Valentine's Day, I put up a Valentine's poem, a love poem, and it is a poem, Sonnet 29 from Bill Shakespeare. And I'm in my den, and I can hear people, and there was some neighbor kids looking at and reading the poem, and I hear this one boy go, "It doesn't make sense." So I thought I better translate. So this is a translation, but first I'll read you the Bill's poem. When, in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I, all alone, weep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like no one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring a man's art and a man's scope. With what I most enjoy contested least, yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, like a lark at a break of day rising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings. Then I scorn and would not change my fate with kings. So here's my translation to the young man who couldn't understand that. When I'm alone and down and out, God don't want to hear my prayers. And I ain't got no hope. Suffering envy of folks with friends, envy of rich folks, and envy of those with power. Then I think of you, your sweet love. And then I scorn to change my fate with kings. I'm strong again. So that's my translation. and here's, us old people tend to write old people type poems. This one's called Old Tapestry Rug. I'm an old tapestry rug, made years ago during the dark war and the joyous trauma of victory. I glowed and bare feet danced on me. Now I'm threadbare in spots, my weave coming undone, dust built up on my surface, colors dim, and my pattern faded with every footstep. Then evening light angles across me, and a random story, an intricate scene of who I was and who I am flickers on and off. That time of day when light turns to night. One more. A high band. I think I have a high band here.
You can't read a high band unless you explain what it is.
Okay, I'll explain. A haiban is a Japanese form that involves a prose poem, prose paragraph basically, and then followed by a haiku, which they don't necessarily have to be the same, but they are connected, at least in my mind and in the author's mind. So it's this is a haiban called The Relic of Learning. I love the wide, worthless bowl on my dining room table. 2 unround apples and a round orange rest together in its center. A bowl I threw at craft school 30 years ago. Fired to cone 10, it came out of the firing asymmetrical, with one side higher than the other, slightly out of round, with a beautiful bubble, water green glaze, and a crack along the outside wall. Does it send me back 30 years? No, the bowl connects me to my joy to hold fresh fruit and transfer the magic, the bowl connects me to my joy and the magic of transforming a round lump of mud into a graceful, flawed, hollow, holding fresh fruit in the morning light. The haiku, a touch of fingers lift and stretch the spinning mud, wide bowl full of fruit. Just a reminder, our Poetry While You Wait event on the 3rd Thursday of our art walk in McMinnville is April, or third Friday. We'll have Poetry While You Wait. Many of the poets are here. And just to explain for those who don't know what that is, we are set up at a wine bar, have a table, some typewriters, and the wine tasting people come in and they say, we'd like a poem on a prompt, climbing a mountain, or whatever.
Your daughter's wedding.
Your daughter's wedding, yeah. And then we say, go taste wine, and then we come back. They come back about an hour. We give ourselves an hour, not 6 minutes. And then we give them a poem. And it's a lot of fun. And so if you think about it, April 19th, the 3rd Friday. So even if, it's at, you know where Nick's is, cafe? It's right next door. There's a Ransom and the daughter's deli.
It's also the Ransom Spirits tasting room in Toronto, and it's like that same.
And so even if you don't want to write a poem, come in and give us one, give us a prompt, and then you get a poem. It's a fundraiser for the library. It's $5, and then for the poem, and then we give it to the library.
And then we use it to purchase books from our reading poets, and just kind of with more programs like Poetry Night. So.
Thank you.
It comes back. No, I'm really excited. I'm mostly excited to hear because at Poetry Nights after the Poetry While You Wait, sometimes people will read the poems that they've written for other people, and it's really fun. So, Angie, hi, nice to see you.
This first poem is for me. Hot coal embers burning down my throat, so it always feels like I can't breathe. I think that's why I like the cold so much, because it reminds me that I'm still alive. I don't always feel that way, like I'm going through the motions, but I never really breathe. What if I never get to scream? I have fire in my breath. I am worthy of words. These coal embers will someday fuel my body as soon as I learn to embrace my warmth. Okay, this is about an older boy who did me wrong. Beautiful little lies. Lies in perfect piles, piling up and up right next to those pretty brown eyes. I want to make something clear. I was literally just there. You came up to me, and from the start came those words to break my heart. But it was okay, because I loved all those pretty lies. Lies so shiny and new. Could they possibly be true? Lies, I want to be with you. The thing about brown eyes and lies is you never know what's going to be true. And how I can't ever see myself with you, but lies speak to my heart, and my eyes are seeing the truth. Yet I find myself still here listening to you. Okay. And then this is the last one I'm going to read. And I know how I feel like I'm young, so maybe y'all have experienced this, but you go home from the summer and you have a summer love. You know, maybe. I've never been in love, but I went home for the winter, so I kind of had a winter love. Sometimes I look at the sky and I'm amazed when I see the moon. I would just like to say, not many people get me this way. Have you ever looked at someone and feel something that physically isn't there? But somehow in that moment so real, moments making minutes into memories. Memories I feel when I close my eyes and feel you looking into mine. Sun rays. Sun rays soaking into my cheek. Sun rays made me bleed. Sun rays can't get enough of me. Sun rays hugging my whole body. Sun rays tracing my back. Sun rays holding my hand. Sun rays likes me for me. Sun rays I feel comfortable enough to sleep. Sun rays kisses my lips in quick bursts before I leave. And when I open my eyes, my cheeks aren't as warm. My lips empty. My mouth dry. My mind, my body doesn't belong to me anymore. I always thought I was in love with the moon. I didn't know this universe I'd been looking at would be revolving around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Do we have anyone else that wants to read? Oh my gosh. Okay. There were two here. I know. Oh my gosh. Okay. We'll take a minute. I'll take this moment. What do you have?
A poem.
Oh, you want to read too? Oh.
Yeah.
Not on the list, Bob.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a list. We used to have a list until we had that fist fight over the order last time.
You would not believe how violent poets get over it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Heidi Reinker. And I wrote these two poems for the Paper Gardens, if any of you are familiar. So we'll see if it gets in. Or if they get in. They're two separate poems. They're haikus. And the first one is about my friend Carrie, who is Doc Savage. She's a high school teacher, and she inspires me to write and to do art. And so I adore her. A friend gives time and space. They talk, walk, and share art. Feeling connected and worthy, a friend. The next one relates to a story. When I was 14, I did a 20-day wilderness course in the Appalachian Mountains. And it was rock climbing, canoeing, and backpacking. And it changed my life. I tell you, I mean, to this day, I still feel the sense of self-efficacy. So I feel like I can do anything if I put my mind to it. And rock climbing really rocked my world because it just... there were two climbs we did. The first one, I was like shaking like a leaf. I finally got up to the top. It was probably like 30 feet, pretty straight up. And I just bawled my eyes out. And the cool thing that got me up there, though, were my teammates down below saying, "You can do it, you can do it, you can do it." And so when I got up to the top, I just started crying of pure joy, you know. And then the second time I did it, there was too much slack, and I fell like 10 feet and sprained my ankle. And I was like in the 8th day of the 20-day. And I went to the hospital, and they're like, "Oh, you know, you can be done." I'm like, and the funny thing is, I'm going to backtrack for a moment. When I was like in the 2nd or 3rd day, I was like, okay. We talked to a couple of friends there, and we're like, "We're going to hitchhike home. We're done with this." You know? Like, and then they had heard us through the grapevine, and we talked about it, and we stayed with it. And so the 8th day, here this happens, and I'm like, no way. I mean, even if I have to have crutches, I'm going out there. And so luckily, we were doing the canoeing next, and so I was able to rest my feet. And actually, no, we had a solo first for like 24 hours. We had to be on our own on a creek, and it was really cold, cold water, so I got to rest it in the cold water and just rest. And then we did canoeing. But anyhow, this one is called Climbing, and it goes like this. Climbing, rocks, zigzag up, hand over hand moving. Heat in body bubbles inside. Climbing. Thank you. There we go.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes. And then I will mention, while it is too late to submit any poems to Paper Gardens, because that was March 1st, the award ceremony/reading will be on Thursday, May 9th at the Sahagian Cultural Center in Newburgh. And so you may see some familiar faces. I don't know. I don't have any insight to like who's winning or anything. I'm just assuming. Yes. Hi.
Thank you. My name is Bonnie. Last month when I was here for the very first time, Ken Evershood, the poet, was here. And he so inspired me that I went home and wrote my very first poem. And I sent a message to him and told him how he inspired me. So he wrote a poem, and I asked him if I could read it here, and he said, of course. So this is what he wrote. It's called The Cave, and it comes from the cave you fear to enter is the one that holds the treasure you seek. So close all the books. They can't help you now. They will only distract you from the thin, almost invisible thread that you are following. Turn away from your mentors, the voices of wisdom that guided you to this place where you alone now must enter. Their work is done. Yours begins. Leave behind the voices whispering should, must, and can't. Forget about what he is doing, what she has accomplished. None of that matters here. Let go of your clinging attachment to riches and fullness and even your good name. These don't endure, nor can they save you from the painful joy of really living. You have to come to the place where the only needful thing is to hear what is hard, to feel what is true, and to face the greatness of which you are capable, calling for a courage that frightens you and compels you. You have come to the cave you fear that holds the treasure you have searched for all your days, the treasure of your true self. The only price is your life. Go now. So let me read you my very first poem. And it's called, there's a picture. Yes. It's called Rooftop Blue Jay in Galoshes. There it is again and again, the clomping that never stops. I just don't know why he doesn't wear flip-flops. I know he's wearing galoshes because in the rain he really sloshes. If I were the one walking up there, quieter shoes I would certainly wear. Why can't he just fly away and leave me in peace? I do pray. Wish he'd go fly up a tree, but I think he likes tormenting me. He struts around, I do declare, like he owns the place. It's not fair. I went out to chase him off, and he dropped some poop in my hair. He simply laughs, and then he walks back and forth, up and down. I've got to find a way to put him on the ground. And when I do get him down on land, I'll fill his boots with wet, wet sand. I will watch him slowly trudge away and pray he won't return another day.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks for coming back. Yeah. And Bob, and then did we have anyone else that wanted to share? Okay.
Notice that I do not have a phone or paper. I'm going to do this from memory, which at my age is kind of like working without a net. Oh, this is one I just wrote recently. It's called Solace in Small Things. Watching chickadees and sparrows eating seed you scattered in the snow makes it difficult to sustain the thought your life was wasted.
I subconsciously did the thing I do when I drop my dog's leash, which is immediately like step on it and keep running. And I'm like, oh no, that's a mic cord. I can't do that. Okay. I know. At least you didn't do like my dog and be like, whoa. So I was, thank you, Bob. Do we have anyone else that would like to share? Okay, great. Thank you all so much for coming to review. April 4th, we'll have the Oregon Poet Laureate, Kim Stafford, will be here. I will say to this room that we are expecting a lot of people since he is the Oregon Poet Laureate. So we want our favorites to come early so they get a seat. We're the favorites. They are the favorites. The people who are here tonight.
The regulars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's a professor at Lewis and Clark, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah. And also, I mean, maybe he feels the same way I do, but like his dad was William Stafford. So maybe he's like, oh yeah, that's my dad, but I'm my own poet, which he is. He's a really amazing poet in his own right. Maybe I just talked about some parent issues. You all did. So first Thursday, we'll have Kim Stafford here. April 18th, we'll have our Paintings to Poems here tonight. And then if you get a chance to go upstairs, we have the McMinnville High School Art is doing a do you have a child upstairs?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My son is Zachary Reinker, and just as you're walking up, it's pretty much like right there. It's like a very scientific, or not science, science fiction. Science fiction.
But yes. Yes, so upstairs we have an art show from the local high school students. And thank you again, Tim, for coming. He does have his book available for sale. And thank you all. We'll see you next month. Thank you.